Ranking every single player to play for Crystal Palace this season, there's 31 names to go through. Let's crack on. We'll rattle through the first few because it's just youngsters who've only managed a few minutes here and there. At 31, it's Dean Benamar, who got 64 minutes against Coops in the Conference League. And at 30, it's centre-back George King, who got 77 minutes in that game. At 29, it's Benji Casey, who's got 2 appearances off the bench. At 28 is a guy who I expect to get many more minutes next season, Rio Cardinez, who's only managed 2 appearances this season. At 27, it's Caden Rodney, the 3 appearances for him. And 26, it's Joel Drakes-Thomas, who at 16 years of age has managed 4 appearances, including 2 in the Premier League. Pretty impressive. Into the main first teamers now, and at 25, I'm going with this man, Romain Esse, who obviously was only there for the first half of the season. Doesn't quite look to be Premier League quality just yet, but obviously a bright young player. And at 24, it's the complete other end of the spectrum, Nathaniel Klein. Just hang up your boots. At 23, I've then got Chadi Riyad for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, he's very, very injury prone, but I also don't think he looks good enough when he is available. And at 22, I mean, he only cost £1 million or something like that, but Borna Sosa is genuinely one of the worst players in the Premier League who gets considerable minutes. Then the next 2, I think people might think this is harsh, but I just really don't rate either of them. Eddie Nketiah at 21 and Brennan Johnson at 20. £40 million on him should genuinely be a war crime. At 19, I'm then going to go with Walter Benitez. I actually do think he's one of the better backup goalkeepers in the Premier League, but he's only played 8 times this season, so he can't really be any higher. At 18, I'm then going to go with Uche, who I think's been okay, but still looks very raw. 17 is Evan Gesson, and if he didn't get injured, he'd probably be a lot higher in this list, but ultimately he only played 11 times. Looked really good in them 11 games since joining on loan in January, but then he's been injured, so I can't really put him any higher. 16 for Justin Devaney, I think he's probably fair. Then Jorgen Strand Larsen's going to come in at 15. 4 goals in half a season, probably not good enough. Then the next 3 I think are all very, very similar in terms of quality for this season. All centre mids, 14 Jefferson Lerma, 13 Will Hughes, and 12 Daichi Kamada. Let me know if you'd put them anywhere different. And then just missing out on the top 10 is a man who's obviously got a lot of quality, but I don't think he's quite kicked on this season. Hopefully he can next season, and that's Yeremy Pino. Into the top 10 now, and at 10 it's someone who's really got better as the season's gone on, JD Canvo. He's still only 19 years of age. He looks a really, really accomplished centre-half. Looked very raw when he first came in, but I think has really improved as the season's gone on. Then it doesn't really feel like Mateta's had that good a season, but he still managed to get 14 goals in all competitions, which isn't bad at all, so I'm going to put him in at 9th. And then at 8th, I think a very, very underrated player in the grand scheme of the Premier League, that's Chris Richards. 7, another sort of underrated player, Tyreek Mitchell, plays every single minute at left-back and is always solid. And then 6, this might be harsh, I think a few of you might have him a bit higher. I absolutely rate Dean Henderson so highly, but from this point on, I think all these players have had fantastic seasons. One of them is Daniel Munoz, who's coming in at 5th. Not quite been as good as last season, I don't think, but still obviously a phenomenal right-back, one of the best in the league. Then at 4 is probably the hardest one to play because obviously he was only there for half the season, but Mark Gay, he was absolutely phenomenal in that half season for Crystal Palace. Obviously he was the captain. Can't really put him any higher because he only played half a season, but obviously phenomenal. But I am going to put Maxence Lacroix above him. Obviously, he's slightly worse of a player than Mark Gahey, but he's not a million miles off. I think he stepped into that role really, really well. A fantastic player. He's had some poor games this season, but he's had a lot of phenomenal ones as well. But then in second, it's a man who's somehow got 20 goals this season. What a player. What an underrated player, Ismaila Sarr. But at number 1, for me, it has to be this man, Adam Wharton, Crystal Palace's Player of the Year.